Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. Dr. Schuchat, is it true that 28% of the nation's 12th graders reported vaping nicotine at least once in the past 30 days?
Those data are from the preliminary results of the 2019 National Youth Tobacco Survey. The final results aren't quite available, but that's right.
And is there a statistical analysis that found that for one smoker that successfully quits thanks to e-cigarettes, 81 young e-cigarette users will become traditional cigarette smokers? Are you familiar with that?
I don't have that statistic, but what I can say is that e-cigarette use is much more frequent among young people, youth, than it is among adults.
And are you familiar that people who use e-cigarettes then end up going and using regular cigarettes?
That's right. The National Academy of Medicine looked at that in terms of whether e-cigarette use may lead to lead to smoking cigarettes, and there's moderate evidence about that. The newest generation of e-cigarettes isn't really covered under that study, and the newest generation seems to have a number of factors that make it even more addictive or even more popular among youth. So we don't really have the long-term follow-up on them.
Now, on September 11, 2019, President Trump announced a ban on flavored e-cigarettes. He finally did something I agree with. And it hasn't been implemented yet at the FDA. My understanding is the CDC came out in strong support of the flavor ban, with the director stating that it's needed to reduce the epidemic. But Washington is a very political place. And so now you have the president's advisors telling him that this is going to hurt his reelection in battleground states because there are hundreds of thousands of people in battleground states who vape. What would you tell the president about that argument that his advisors are making and whether he should stick to his original ban?
Let me just say that the regulation of tobacco products is under the FDA, not the CDC. As a public health expert and as a leader at the CDC, I can say that we're extremely concerned about flavors and the role that they play in hooking young people to a life of nicotine, and that we really want to avoid another generation being addicted to nicotine. So addressing flavors directly is a good idea in terms of the role that they play in young people, particularly middle school and high school students, beginning to use e-cigarettes.
And on a substantive level, how would you answer the trade-off where people say, we agree with you on children not having these flavors, and that's why I support a ban, that's why people support a ban, but what do you say adults should do who want to transition off cigarettes? Are there ways that they can still use e-cigarettes without the flavor, with only the tobacco flavor? Is there any evidence to suggest that it would diminish their ability to reduce their addiction to cigarettes?
We don't think that flavors are the critical factor in e-cigarettes for adults who are trying to get off of smoking cigarettes. We think the nicotine level is the principal issue there, and we certainly encourage adults to quit smoking and use FDA-approved devices or approaches to do that. Behavioral counseling is also recommended, and there's emerging data that's being looked at about the role of e-cigarettes. None of the e-cigarette companies have applied to FDA to be approved as a cessation device as of yet.
So would it be fair to say then that you do not think banning flavors in e-cigarettes would in any way harm adults who seek to quit regular cigarettes by using e-cigarette products?
I think the way you've characterized that, I would agree with.
All right. I have no further questions.